Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Discard for Magic. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron.
I'm your other host, James or Jexic, and today we're welcoming back two experts on the Shadow Elves. We've got Shampoo.
Hey, everyone.
And we also have Vexer.
So we're happy to have both you guys on again. We both had you on different episodes, and it's been a lot of fun. And this is also our first time doing two faction experts for a faction, so it's going to be a good one.
Great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So the Shadow Elves are one of the most complex factions. A lot of new players struggle to play them. So for new players who are just starting out learning the faction, what's some tips you guys have for them?
Well, for one, I think they have pretty much a amazing econ. And what I saw at the beginning when they first got released was a lot of people were using them very aggressively, but they're really an econ deck. Their econ combos really well with Magic Denial. They're able to recycle units. They have Into Darkness, which is a great econ card to take away a full health 2-cost unit. And on top of all that, they have great assassination tools. So they're very well rounded.
I always say that they're an assassination faction, but it is true. They can play the long game, especially because of the fact that they'll be able to be bouncing their own units. That is always an alternative. I would say some of the key things to learn how to play them is you have to get familiar with the boost engine and be able to always be stacking up boosts. That's very important for the deck to really function to its maximum potential. You need to be generating boosts as much as possible. And know when to bounce your units, know when to save those boosts to try to make a big play. So that's probably one of the hardest parts of learning the deck. The other one is the hand management. And this is it's the only faction that has a wild card that allows you to recover any card from the discard. So that really changes the way you're able to play. You don't really need to be holding things for too long, that it's not the right situation to use that event. You can always feel free to discard them. Same thing with the champions. And then when the right time comes, you're able to go back again and get it. So that's why you don't really need to be holding to things you might want to use that much, like maybe you would do with the other factions, as you're able to recover things, right? This is one of the unique things of the Shadow Elves, and that's one of the main factors why they are so strong.
For anybody who doesn't know, the terminology of bounce is when Salundar uses his ability to pull back one of the common units into his hand using those boosts to do so.
Yeah, and just to add to Vexer's point, in terms of hand management, I find mages really good mid-game. You can build up your boost economy, but you can also cycle new cards into your hand. And there's been games where I had 8 or 9 cards in my hand and my draw deck was empty because I was just pinging with mages. So they're also a good mid-game to kind of cycle your hand and get what you need.
You guys find that one common shines more than the others, or do you play most of their common units? How do you approach their common units?
I would say one's crappier than the others, more so than, actually probably Seeker's probably the best in my opinion, but Ranger definitely is probably the weakest. Very situational. You probably want to have one in your hand in endgame to set up a knight assassination attempt or an assassination attempt with the Ranger, but I discard probably 2 or 3 Rangers every game. Sometimes all of them, actually.
The Seeker is the powerhouse of the deck. It's one of the best commons in the whole game, not only in Shadow Elves, but in general, because you're getting the stats closer to what would usually cost you 2 magic for 1 magic, and then you're getting one of the most powerful abilities in the game, being able to attack and then retreat by forcing the unit with Paint. And that allows you to use the summoner, attack with the summoner, and then protect him. They have a summoner with the highest base attack value, tied with a Vua, which they're considering maybe even lowering it in a Vua. So you can really abuse that very high power because of the Seeker, allowing you to do that. So the Seeker is the one that I never discard. I play all of them, and then I try to bounce them so much that I'm playing 8, 12, even more sometimes. If I don't have any particular thing I want to get back with a tome, I just get more Seekers. So the Seeker is definitely the strongest one. Shampoo was saying the Ranger is really situational, just there to help you pull out very specific board states or very specific plays. The Knight is also really good. I play most of them. I usually at least 3, some games all of them. It's say an economic powerhouse because you're also getting stats that cost 2 magic just for one, right? Like the 2/5 baseline. It has a negative ability, can damage the summoner, but dealing 5 is not that easy. So you're always playing that game in which they'll have to attack it at least twice. And if they failed, you just bounce it back, and they lost those 2 attacks in which they didn't get any reward for it. So it's also an amazing unit. The self damage that it deals when it comes down is really a benefit, right? Because you want those, and whatever you're damaging, it's going to be either a gate or a unit you're going to bounce back. It's an amazing one. Finally, the mage is the one that I discard a few of them, at least 1 or 2, in some games even more, because they're just hard to sustain at 2 magic. Like, you cannot bouncing them back to your hand and replaying them too many times, but they are the heart of the boost engine, so you'll always need to have some around, and we'll try to be pinging gates as much as possible with them.
Yeah, sometimes I'll build like a mage farm, even if I don't have enough boosts to bounce a mage. If he's low health, like 1 health or 2 health, I'll put him behind like a 10 gate and just have like a mage farm where I'm just boosting with him, especially if there's no risk of him dying. That's something I definitely like to do as well. But yeah, I mean, from what Vexer's saying, there's really good value in all these commons. Shadow Knight with 5 health, 2 attack for 1 cost magic. True Seeker with 3 health and 3 attack. Just overall great value in these units.
One thing I see you guys talking about farming the boosts. I mean, it works on any damage on any of your cards within 3 spaces of a Bua. I see a lot of people will just attack with a True Seeker that's later on and just attack your own gate or something to get additional boosts. Is that something you guys do regularly?
Yeah, all the time in the late game, or whenever you don't really have the 3 attacks on the enemy units, you're always considering that 3rd attack to be attacking your own things. And that's the ideal unit for that, right? Like, once it only has 1 on damage, that's all you really want to do. Some people use the mages, for example, to attack their own gates to get some boost. I never really like doing that. It's too risky. Like, you hit a 3/3 and then you're really affecting your boost economy. It's too much to hit a gate that way. Maybe the ranger can attack one of the gates. It's more likely that you're going to get like only 1 damage. The self attacks is something very important, because you can never have enough boost in this deck, right? Because you also use them for the glinting speed event combos. You always have to be using the 3 attacks. If it's not on the enemy, then any remaining attacks, make sure you're pinging something you have around to try to get some more boosts.
Yeah, I wouldn't wait to like try to build your boosts when you need them. Just like as soon as the game starts, always try to get some boosts so you're building a little bit of a bank so that when you do need them, you can use your boosts.
How many boosts do you think is like a good amount to have on Cylinder? Do you have like a set amount that you're like, oh, I feel very comfortable when I have like 3 or more, or like 4 or more boosts on Cylinder?
I would say that's situational, but definitely end game when you're going for your go-to glinting speed finish, you want at least 2 or even maybe 4 to be able to combo to get to that spot where you're going for that kill shot with Cell. So that's when it becomes more important. But apart from that, I think it's more situational.
But I would say that 4 boost is the sweet spot, like that you're always happy if you're that number, because you know you even have enough for the glinting speed play. If the opportunity shows up, you know you have the boosts to make it happen. The minimum that I want to have, like at the beginning of a turn, like if you have 2 boosts, then you're able to do those plays in which you bounce something that they almost killed and then you resummon it. So you at least want to have 2 if possible, like by finishing a turn. And when you have like at least 4, it's always dangerous for the opponent, like those type of combo plays with the glinting, or you have at least for a few units to recycle a seeker and then bounce a damage unit, and then you start summoning again to start ramping them up again. So
What about their champs? Their champs are very unique. They all have their own sort of niche. How do you feel about the 3 champs?
Talia's pretty useless. I think I've maybe summoned her 1 game, Vexer. I don't know about you.
yeah, only like 1 or 2, and in one of them she was just like a melee unit. I just had too much magic. The other one I was close.
Winning by so bad that you had to summon her, right?
Yeah, like it's once I almost get the kill with her, but then the ranger went like 0-2. But yeah, she's really bad. Like at least she's situational. Like she's covering a specific situation that the other cards in the deck might not cover, might not allow you to do something. So at least she fills that gap, right? The thing is, with all the champions, all of them are really situational. Like even Samara, she's only good against specific factions that have like a swarm of units and they will never really be able to just start running away from her. And even in those, because of the 7 health, you have to be really careful how you play her to make sure that there's only a single flank exposed so that they don't like nuke your champion in a single turn and you're back like 5 magic. It's hard to recover from that. So same thing, I think Lucian is probably the more playable one, even though like if you have it too early, it's hard to pay for her. If you get it too late, well, she's useless because we're not going to get enough boost. So it's hard to find that sweet spot around mid game, beginning to mid game, in which you're going to be able to get maximum value. And even then, only in certain matchup it's worth playing it, because the thing is the common units of this faction are so good and you're able to just replay them non-stop that many times it's just better to drop the champions and just like play multiple times the same commons, because you can just be bouncing them back whenever they survive and you can position them in a way that the odds say that it's like they're going to survive. So it's hard to simply run out of stuff and just have excess magic, because you'll always be able to keep replaying stuff over and over.
Yeah, I would say Lucian's probably the most versatile, but even then, I probably only play him like 25% of my games, I'd say. Samara, you can have some fun with Samara against Fungal Dwarves and Crimson Order. I definitely like summoning her during those matchups. Apart from that, very situational. I would say 25 to 30% maybe in terms of summoning these champions, but like Vexer said, most time I'm spending it on common units.
I guess another thing with them too is that you guys already talked a bit about how Onyx Tome lets you get any card from your discard. So you don't feel bad discarding your champions in this deck, because if that situation comes up where they are going to be useful, you can always go get them.
Exactly.
Yeah, but like Lucian's pretty useless late. So usually in that case, if you're getting a champ back with Tomb, it's probably Samara in that case,
Yeah,
I would say.
if they're low health.
Exactly. That's the one that I play the most, bringing her back at the end of the game with Tome. And yeah, she's the perfect situation for that 1-2 life, in which the summoner has already gone all the way back and it's hidden. It's going to be hard getting them. Then they'll have to have some units around, right? And you can catch them for the last damage with Samar.
Lucian can have incredible value though, so I don't want to kind of underestimate Lucian. If you draw him like at the right timing, especially with Shadow Elves, because you can dump your first hand usually because of Tomb and everything. It's easy to get magic at the beginning of the game. If you have Lucian in your second draw, that could be incredible value with her pings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find that sometimes with Lucian, it's not even that you actually deal that much with the ability. Sometimes it's just the threat. Just the fact that they have to stay so far away from that area. They can't move anything close.
Yeah, and you can tuck them away too, right? Behind a gate and just have them build up boosts, and then they become like a nuke that you don't want to approach, right? Like you said, it's the threat that with that many boosts.
Exactly. And that's perfect in matchups like Fallen Kingdom, like in the Tournament of Champions game. I managed to play that card, and yeah, it was the MVP of that matchup. And when the hordes are coming, like it's perfect. Like he got like, I don't know, almost 8 to 10 damage out of the ability, probably.
Yeah, it's really good for those decks that can't really escape it. Same with Samara. Samara and Lucian kind of fill that same sort of niche where, like, if there's a lot of units on the board and they can't really escape that ability, then you're going to get a lot of value out of it.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with Samara and Fungal Dwarves, and I know you main Fungal Dwarves, Aaron, so I'm sure you've seen her around.
Yep, definitely. There was one game, I don't remember, Vexer, if it was against you or if it was against Bradolph, but it was against one of the two of you, and I was playing, it may have even been the last Tournament of Champions, but Samara got played 3 times, and I was like, what in the world? I hate this. And it wasn't even 3 tombs. It was once got pulled back at like low health, and then 1 tomb, and it was like the third time Samara came out, I was like, that's it. I'm done. Like, I can't do anything with that.
Yeah, she's great. She can be a lot of fun.
How do you guys approach? You talked about hand management, and I feel like hand management is a big thing with these Shadow Elves. So, how do you approach that aspect? Do you always toss like champs when you get them? Would you always toss certain cards knowing that you'll get them back with Tomb? Like, are there certain cards you never play the first time around?
Yeah, for the events, well, the only one I don't discard automatically the first time I draw is Into Darkness, but I think I auto discard Glinting Speed, Onyx Tomb, and Shadow Pulse the first time I draw them.
Even the two?
Yeah, you know what? And Vexer, maybe you can debate me on this one. From a cost benefit analysis, I mean, you're kind of hitting yourself for 2 damage. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, if you use it on a Seeker, it's fine. I've actually seen people use it on like a knight or something, which is to me is a big no-no. It costs 1 magic to use. Yeah, overall from a cost benefit analysis, you're going to discard a mage a seeker the round before and then play Onyx Tomb for 1 magic. It's not the best value in my opinion for the first. You can discard the first one when you need magic in my opinion. But yeah, Vexer, go ahead.
I don't discard them. Only situations in which I've had to do that is like when I get like both in the opening hand or those type of extreme circumstances in which I had to drop one. But other than that, I just think they're too valuable, and the 2 damage it deals, that's a benefit. So it's just, to me, I see it as another Seeker reuse that I'm gonna get. I like just putting it on a Seeker and then giving you the boost to then bounce it immediately, or bounce one that you already had to replay it. So that's another benefit I see on them, so I always play them.
Yeah, the thing with Shadow Elves, though, is that you can recycle units, right? So the value of Onyx Tomb, to your point, Aaron, I think you mentioned at the beginning, was the flexibility of that card, especially in late game, right? To like be able to draw whatever you need. But you can recycle units with Shadow Elves. So that's why I feel like the value of Onyx Tomb is a little bit overrated. If it were 0 cost for magic, I would totally understand. But at 1 cost, and especially using it on like a ranger or like a knight to damage them, I just find that from a cost benefit analysis, it's not like a must play for me.
Interesting.
The other events, Into the Darkness, I never discard it either, because that one, while you cannot return with a tome, there's always going to be gain by using it, refreshing your 10 gate, which that means a ton more of boost and repositioning, or bouncing like a 2 magic unit at least from the opponent, so then you get economic advantage there too. Yeah, that one I don't discard. The Glinting Speed, I tend to discard at least the first one. Even sometimes the second one, if I don't have like almost no boost at that point, or I feel like the game is not even close to a situation to go for the assassination, because I know I can get one of them at the end of the game with a tome if I need it. The Shadow Pulse is one that is, it's common to discard the first if it's at the beginning of the game, if there's really almost no gates yet. But in mid-game, late game, I find that there's always enough value that you can get from it. It makes you really not want to discard it. Like it's just better just to play it and deal a few damage to the opponent, and then deal a few self-damage to your units to bounce them. So it's better than the magic you would get from that. Like many times if you deal 2-3 damage on the board, that's gonna be close to giving you that magic from those units.
Yeah, for the Glinting Speed, for sure. I always usually discard the first one. I've seen other players kind of make some suboptimal plays with Glinting Speed. I do feel like the first one is a little bit overrated. But yeah, the second one, you need that in your hand. It's very similar to Out of Shadows, for instance. Like, you better bet that a Shadow Elf player is probably going to have Glinting Speed in their hand at the end of the game. I try not to discard my second one because I don't want to waste an Onyx Tomb on it. So usually, like mid-game, like I said, I try to cycle my cards with mages. And Into Darkness, one thing I've seen people do is maybe hang on to 2 of them, and it's clogging their hand. So instead of trying to pick like the best time to use Into Darkness, I always usually try to use it on the first like 2 cost unit, full health, just to get that economic advantage.
I'm just laughing because you guys are always talking about using Into Darkness for economic advantage, but like I always think of it as an assassination card, but maybe that's my own issue there.
I would say the second time you draw it, it's an assassination card, but the first time you draw it, you probably just want to use it as an economic boost.
Yeah, it depends on the matchup. Like on those matchups in which the summoners have to get close with all the units to the middle of the board, yeah, it is definitely like your best choice to hit the summoner and try to get the kill. But most of the times you can try to do both, right? Like you can be targeting a unit and then hitting the summoner in the back.
But yeah, that's the best.
Immediately be getting the benefit, just bouncing the unit. You're already winning there, and then if you also get a hit, it's just it's all positives, right, from that one.
We've talked a little bit about how they're an assassination deck and an econ deck, and their econ is one of the best in the game. And their assassination, while they might be the best at trying to get to, the opponent's summoner, they don't have a ton of firepower. Like the most damage they can do, I think Shampoo, you've said this before in one of the chats, is like 11.
Yeah, they don't hit very hard.
Yeah, maybe a little better if you have like a weird situation where you're like pulling Samara or something like that. So in general, they don't hit super hard. So what HP do you guys think you have to have the opponent's summoner at where you feel comfortable executing like your last glinting speed or something like that?
So I would say probably 6 HP is a sweet spot. And I think that's about an 85% kill shot if you have 8 dice. Usually a combination of Mage, Knight, Cell, and Into Darkness. So I would say that's probably the sweet spot. And if you're an opposing summoner and you're at 6 health and you're around the front line, you should be probably nervous.
Yeah, I would say around 7 or 6. That's where you want to have them. Like at 7, you're gonna need to have like 3 attacks on them, or you're gonna need to have like some extra damage from pulses or things like that. I feel they do hit pretty hard because, well, you have the constant 3 melee that you're able to repeat. With most factions like that, 3 melee unit usually comes down, attack something, and then they're gonna prioritize and kill it. With the Seekers, it's easy to have like 3 melee nonstop every turn. And then you have Cylinder, which is the one of the hardest attacking like range summoners, right? Like 5. So that's pretty tough from my perspective. And being able to attack from the same flank multiple times, like by bouncing the unit and all that, like it's easy to get those like 7 damage in a turn. And a lot of summoners, you really just need to hit them like once or twice to get them at that range. So yeah, it's hard going against that when you have to hide after a couple of hits, because now they can just kill you in a single turn.
And the thing with Shadow Elves too is that sweet spot, you can wait. You don't need to take your shot like right away. They're a deck that can go 12 rounds, right? So don't go all in with like a glinting speed when they're at like 7 or 8. If you feel like you can get them down to like 6, for instance, like take your shot at the right time and soften up your summoner before taking that shot. Because there could be circumstances where glinting speed, you go all in with the kill shot. It's probably their biggest weakness. And I talked about this with Vexer, is even if you have an 85% kill shot and you end with Cell in a vulnerable spot and you go for the kill shot and you miss at 85%, you might be dead the next turn, right? So you want to get the highest probability kill shot, and you can wait and be patient and get your opponent's health down a little bit more than you think.
Exactly. Yeah. Like sometimes you have to ask yourself, like, do I really need to take a risk with Cylinder? Even if you have like a 75% shot, like, what's the point of risking losing the game, right? If you're going to get stuck in a bad spot in which they can turn the game around. So unless you're about to lose and you have to take those shots, it's better to wait and just keep like pinging, right? Like another ranger to the face of the summoner, try to bring them 1 down or get enough boost. The best approach is going for it, but because you have enough boost to get Cylinder in and then get him out into a safe spot. When you do that, yeah, it's perfectly fine to take those shots.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna mention. Is that with glinting speed, if you have extra boost, you can put something behind a gate, bounce it, and then have him glint back to that, or flashing snap, whatever the ability is called, to get back out.
Oh yeah, that's amazing when it works out, but it's tough to get that perfect circumstance, especially end game when you're running out of units.
Wait, people are making it to Shadow Elves endgame?
Yeah.
I thought you were just supposed to die in the middle of the game. I thought that's where you're just supposed to end up.
I think they're like a 12 round like boxer, right? They're just kind of taking their shots, and then you soften up your opponent, and then the longer the match goes, the more risks your opponent takes, and then you can exploit it and go for the finish.
What about the new factions that just got released? How do you feel like they match up against those two, the Storm Goblins and Shimmer Sea Fae, which, Vexer, you might actually have some insight into this specifically, because you just played... Did you play both of them in Tournament Champions?
Yes, I played against both of them. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, the Shimmering Fae, as you can expect, just because of how just absurdly weak they are, it's easy, especially because it's one of those decks in which they need Nemira to be coming forward. So that means that's exactly what the Shadow Elves want, right? Like they want the summoner getting closer so that they can do those assassination turns. And I mean, Ymir always has that shot in which they do this amazing turn, and they have all the pieces of that they need to function, and then they suddenly deal a ton of damage that you didn't expect. So they have that shot against the Shadow Elves, but other than that, it's like a very easy matchup for the Shadow Elves in general. Like they will always have like a significant advantage in that one. The Storm Goblins, well, they're a different story there because Telendar is pretty fragile from the perspective that, well, he has 11 life, but some of that life you can see it as being reserved for the knights. So the knights are going to be taking a chunk of that. So if you consider that you're going to really have available around eight life, so any extra hit suddenly that you take makes it hard to be moving him around. So the Storm Goblins, if they go first, if they have some like a good aggressive start and start getting around the middle of the board, they can really get you in trouble, right? Because you cannot just hide cylinder like as you usually do just behind the 10 gate. They're going to be connecting those circuits, and just with the circuit damage, really between the knights and the circuit damage, which you can play less knights in this matchup, but it's still you're going to get a hit a few times. You can be around 5 or less life. So that means that you cannot be taking any easy shots that getting exposed and getting hit by a witch or something like that. But the reason why you do have a chance is the Storm Goblins need Thrak to be close to the action. So that opens up the door to all those assassination tricks, which is what I did in the Tournament of Champions. Because they were coming in hot, I had to be very aggressive against the summoner to try to bring him down. Well, the fact that the goblins have grounded, that's what doesn't make it that easy. Sometimes he's going to come in, like blow everything up, deal some damage, and then just go all the way back. And you can't really do your assassination combo anymore. So I think it's a pretty close matchup. It's probably even, I would say.
Yeah, we actually played this matchup recently, you and I, Vexer. I think it was a practice game, right, for the Tournament of Champions. Yeah, I thought it was very draw dependent for the Storm Goblins, and I feel like we were both losers after that match because Cylindra had like 1 health and Thrak had 1 health, and it was it was a very scrappy matchup. That's what I remember for that one.
It was like anyone's game, right? It was super close.
Yeah, the one thing I do think that goes in Shadow Elves' favor in that matchup is the fact that they can pull units back, which less units on the battlefield is always worse for Storm Goblins.
That's a good point.
So if you can dry out the battlefield, if you have the boost to do so, then that might give you a slight edge against the Storm Goblins, but I haven't played the matchup a whole lot.
Vexor kind of experimented with like a barricade of gates to kind of hold them back because Shadow Elves benefit from gates too, right? So even if you have suboptimal barricade of gates, you can at least like build boosts off them. That's definitely another strategy for the Storm Goblins.
Well, yeah, and the thing here is that, yeah, you can remove the units, but if Thrak is coming in forward and planting forward gates, then he can just use his own units to build those circuits all the way to Cylinder. So that is a challenge. But if like Storm Goblins plays on their side of the board, then yeah, it's a much easier matchup for the Shadow Elves.
For someone just starting out playing the Shadow Elves, what do you think are some of the best matchups for them to play just to get like a feel for how the deck plays and get some easier matchups?
Fungal Dwarves are pretty easy, but maybe for a new player, you probably don't want to experiment against the Fungal Dwarves first. But yeah, the fact that you can use Into Darkness on a beast is pretty good.
A beast that could have, I don't know, 5 boosts waiting to be a monstrosity.
Well, exactly. Yeah, it's devastating to the engine, and I think Aaron, you and I had a game where I think Joe updated mid game, and your call deck had 1 health left or something, and then you immediately
Yeah, that was
lost.
brutal. You went in on a kill shot, and you needed like 4 out of 5 to kill me or something, and you rolled 3 out of 5, and you're like, oh, like I didn't kill you, and then Joe updated, and I died.
Yeah, so funny. And I probably would have lost too.
I know, I had this stuff to kill you next turn. You didn't have that much health left. Joe was like, nah, I think Shadow Elves need to win this one.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I appreciate that.
Some easy matches for them are like things like the Phoenix Elves, because they need the summoner to be part of the action and be attacking, and then you have a multiple ways of getting rid of the blocker and attacking Maldaria. Things like the Polar Dwarves, just because they rely on gate units, and you have the mages, which can like just moving to them and pinging them. Really, any faction that relies on the summoner being in the midfield, but that they don't have enough aggression to really just overwhelm you, right? Because some of them, for example, the Tundra orcs, if they come in hot, like it's really hard to beat them, right? They have the power to overwhelm you. But other ones that maybe they're a little bit slower, like for example, the Mountain Bargath. Like the summoner has to be close to the action, so that gives you a lot of windows to punish him. If he's not close to the action, then the deck is going to be super weak. But then they move gradually as a unit. They cannot just rush you super fast unless they have like a ramming advanced turn or something like that. So those are the ones that are the easiest matchups. The Shadow Elves, they have good matchups against most decks, really. Like whatever you play, you will feel like you will always have the tools to compete against them, that you'll have the means to win, right? Like you can play slightly different sometimes, but you never really feel like you're the underdog, like you don't have a really good chance to win that game.
Yeah, I agree. They're pretty versatile. They don't really have any like amazing matchups, but they don't have any like bad matchups either. They're pretty well rounded, I would say.
What about against the new kids on the block, the Groaks?
Yeah, that's their worst matchup by far, in my opinion. I don't know about you, Vexer. I mean, and that's not. I mean, frogs have an amazing matchup against everyone, so it's more a testament of their power than a specific playstyle, I would say.
I remember thinking that it wasn't. I mean, it's a tough matchup because just the Grogs are just completely overpowered, but you have tools to try to avoid some of the things that make them so busted. So, for example, the fact that you're able to feint and send the seeker back so that he's not closer to those seers, or even just like get units out of the way, like whichever side the seer is, you can just like bounce the units. At least gives you some tools, and like it's not like you have any advantage, but I guess I would have to try it more. But it didn't feel like it was.
The problem with the frogs, though, is specifically against Shadow Elves, is they have warriors that can swallow up your knights, and they have seers that can play cleanup on all your units. So you could be endgame and have like 8 boosts and then nothing to bounce because
Mhm.
they won't leave any wounded units on the board for you to bounce. That's like their main issue against the frogs. A lot of times with like boosts, like you're relying on some damaged units to be left on the field at the start of your turn so that you can bounce them, right? But if there's no one to bounce, then you're not using your boost that
Toughest
efficiently.
matchups for them really are the ones in which the opponent is able to just stay all the way back on their side of the board and be like building some value, like the Savannah Elves or the Brute Grogs, and then still have like a decent range game to be able to be exchanging. In the case of the Brute Grogs, really is the like those seers, right? Like that you can just have that and still try to be active, and you also have like the feud, like the range, the mystic that they have. So those are the toughest ones for the elves. So yeah, but probably I would say the Deepwood Rogues probably have a slight advantage at least against them.
Yeah, I remember a specific game against the frogs where like I played it like blueprint Shadow Elf game and I even rolled well. And at the end of the game, it just went down to econ and they beat me out. And it's just the insane value that the frogs have with their warriors, the seers, and just cleaning up my units. But yeah, I agree with you on Savannah Elves. I'd probably put high elves in there too in terms of kind of a tough matchup because they force Shadow Elves to play a different game than they're used to.
Exactly. The fact that they're able to fall back and into a very solid defensive position makes it
Mhm.
really hard for the Shadow Elves to do their thing, right? Because they really the place they want to be is the middle of the board, like that midfield exchange of units, because you need the action to be 3 spaces away from Cylinder to have that engine be generating and be able to be recurring those units. So if you're not able to do that, it becomes so much harder to get all the value you get from the very strong cards.
And yeah, one thing I think we forgot to mention, especially with Shadow Elves, is the rule of threes. Like just making sure every unit, even gates, are 3 away from cylinder to maximize. So at the start of a turn, you could bounce a unit or benefit off the gates, generating boosts from the knight or the mages. But yeah, positioning is really important with Shadow Elves.
Mhm.
And there's a little bit of a rule of three that you want everything to be 3 spaces away from cylinder.
Exactly. That's a very important one with the gate. So in this one, you never want to start the gate like all the way to the left side. in like the third row or something like that, that is outside of the range of Celandar for the boosts.
That seems like a common mistake that people would deal with. Not like the first couple times that they play, they might make that mistake. Are there any other common mistakes you think that new players would make with Shadow Elves?
There's one I see every now and then in which they send a knight all the way forward into the enemy territory just to do like a 2 melee attack or try to like kill a small unit. That's the suboptimal way of using them. I guess there are some situations in which maybe you need to do that for one reason or another, but you don't want to give them that big beefy target in which now it's going to be easy for them to put 2 or 3 attacks on it and guarantee that they're killing it. The only reason you would do something like that is because it's a very aggressive faction and you want to buy time and you just put it in a position in which you're slowing their advance. So doing that and like the knight, usually you want it to be only exposed in a single flank. That's the ideal because that way you know like well they'll be if they attack like they won't be able to kill it at most on 2 flanks or in a situation in which they can only attack it twice. Yeah, that's probably one of them. How about you, Shampoo? Any?
I've seen a lot of going up against people. I've seen a lot of suboptimal. I already mentioned it. Onyx Tomb plays where they're just kind of doing boost not on a seeker, but like on a knight. Ideally, you want to use Onyx Tomb on a seeker. The other one I see a lot too is a glinting speed, like a suboptimal glinting speed play where they're bouncing like full health units, bouncing around the board and then coming back. It's not great value if you're kind of bouncing a full health Shadow Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the last thing I see suboptimally is probably using Cell a little bit too much, being too aggressive with them, and just he needs a little bit of a health bank for the Shadow Knights. So you can't just be aggressive with them because I mean this is a play that a lot of players do is they'll be aggressive with the faction, the summoner, and then they'll tuck them away mid to late game to kind of be more efficient with have more units on the board. If you do that with Cell and then he only has 2 or 3 health left, you can't use your knights. So you want to have a little bit of a health bank with Cell, and you don't want to be too aggressive with them in the early game and expose them too much. And I've seen some players do that, I would say.
Related to what you said of the glinting speed, it's only really worth using if you're going after the summoner or trying to kill a champion that they just played and you're doing like the 3 attacks on it to try to just bring it down. Other than that, it's not worth using a glinting speed like boost in the card to like kill a 5 health common or something like that. It's really
Yeah.
never worth it. Like you're spending a decent amount of resources, so really you want to make sure that the target is valuable. And yeah, that thing about not bouncing units that are at full health, that's very important. Like, I guess the only one that you sometimes do that is the Seeker, just to replay it. To always make sure that you want to get them as low as possible before you do that. So, for example, if you do it on a knight, you shouldn't do it on a 2/5 knight. But if the knight was already attacked once and it's a 2/3, and you don't have a Seeker around, maybe you can put the 2 damage on the knight and then you bounce it having 1 life.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I would add to I see people play Rangers maybe too much at 2 AV for a ranged unit. Not the best value. And like I said at the beginning, I think they're my most discarded unit within the deck.
You only bring it out to deal the last few damage
Yeah,
to the summoner, or where you need the extended range for many times is also hitting the summoner with a knight. So you play the
yeah,
ranger
exactly.
with the rush, and then the knight comes out of the ranger, summoned out of it, and then you get the 2 attacks. So one on the flank with the knight, and then the ranger. Like those are the type of plays you're going to do with the ranger. Like at the beginning or middle of the game. But other than that, you don't want to be spending your magic on them unless it's at the end when they only have like a few life left and you're just bringing it down, like even one by one, you don't mind.
We talked a little bit about what factions are the easiest to face. What factions do you think are the toughest? You talked about Deepwood Groaks. Are there any other ones?
So Frogs by far for me. Worst ones. And then, yeah, Savannah Elves and probably High Elves.
Yeah, high elves. I think cloaks is usually hard, but that's in general, right? Like when they get the blocks with all the upgrades from the Machinist. It's always going to be tough.
Yeah, they always piss me off when they use the machinist boots and gun. They're usually like out of range after, or Vlox is out of range of my seekers or mage units next to a gate. Those are always annoying.
What about Tundra Orcs?
Tundra Orcs, so I would say that's an even matchup. So they can really come in hot, but the thing is, the Shadow Elves are really good at handling those situations. Like once you've mastered them, you have a lot of tools to, for example, what happens when they rush you? The first thing is they start just completely blocking your main gate. So in many matchups, like you just lose because of that, right? Like you cannot summon anything and they overwhelm you. But the Shadow Elves, they don't have that issue. They have 4 cards that allow them to get that 10 gate back, the 2 tomes and the Into the Darkness, and then you just reposition it in the second row on the side, like they're not pressuring you. So you're able to survive those type of gate clogging, gate destruction type of plays that aggressive decks do. That's what you can do against the Tundra Orcs. Like they're tough because yeah, they hit hard, they have a lot of health, and they can finish. They have ways of finishing off your units so that you cannot bounce them. I wouldn't say it's a bad matchup necessarily. Probably one that is a little bit well, similar. It's closer also to 50-50, like the Sky Spear Avians, because sometimes like you will simply not be able to prevent them from getting to Cylinder, and Cylinder like he doesn't have a lot of health. So if they get through, sometimes that's it, right? Like so. I want to close one. I would say, not even sure if I would say that it leans to the avians or.
Yeah, even if your gates are blocked, they have options, right? You can summon a knight out of any unit, even, in desperation play, if you only have one gate summoning spot left, you can summon a ranger even, and then it can clear up another spot, and then you can summon a knight from there. So they definitely have options, even when they're kind of surrounded.
There's one that is not seen that often, but the Breakers. It's a tough match because the Seekers, it's harder to rely on the Seekers because the Witches can copy them. And like those
Mm.
attacks for 5 are tough. So like whenever you use them, you need to make sure to get them out of the board, which it's just well, a limitation, right? Like now you have to also do that. So have the boost around. You cannot just simply use them to block Cylinder because now they're going to just copy them. And the Breakers are happy to be all the way back without you rushing them. So the Shadow Elves, they have a tough time like coming forward and trying to position themselves on the other side of the board. So that's a matchup that probably leans to the Breakers.
That's a great point. I don't think I've ever faced the breakers as shadow elves. I don't know if the breakers are popular, but I rarely ever see them in queue. But that's a really good point with the witches.
Yeah, it's a matchup that you don't see that often, but I remember that because in the last tournament of champions, I had to play against Massimo with the Breakers.
Oh, the worst. Massimo's breakers are so good.
Yeah, that was a really tough match. And actually, looking at my history, that's the only time I've encountered, like, I've never encountered that matchup again. But yeah, I would say that one probably leans to the Breakers. Like, they have all those elements of being able to just play all the way on their back row. And then the Shadow Elves have to come forward, but then that's super risky because of Cylinder, right? Like they have a lot of ways of getting to him.
I'd say shadow elves, like you don't typically want to move forward. Where you want to play is usually like mid to back of the board, right? Not the best faction to push forward on any faction. And I think that's again why I think they're a tough matchup against the frogs too. Because with those seers in the back row, you kind of have to move forward a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. They put the burden of having to advance on you. So yeah, I would say that's probably the main weakness that the Shadow Wolves have.
So I've had some success, and I've seen other players had some success with decks that are very quick off the gate, decks that can rush you, like Cave Goblins, Wayfarers, Vargath with like a ramming advance, or Tundra Orcs. Those are the ones that come to mind. How do you guys think Shadow Elves do against those decks?
I actually don't think they're that bad.
Yeah, they're not that bad because just all the cards are just so powerful, and you have all that versatility of bringing like the tome and the gate movement and all those things that you can always be retreating without getting your losing your summoning spots. Like it's hard to not have one of the cards to get your 10 gate back, right? Well, before they blow it up. So they're not awful. It's not easy. Like you have to play really well in those situations, and sometimes like they just get you. But more often than not, I find that the faction gives me the tools to be able to survive and like even just win the econ or find the assassination. And a good example of this rush was in the current tournament of champions in the third iteration. At least three of my matchups, like two of them, they were just completely rushing me and covering my gate spots. But what we were saying, when they do that, they expose the summoner, and I managed to get the assassination kill, having to do the glinting speed, going all in at the summoner. And another one was Fallen Kingdom, like that. They're always coming forward and rushing you, and the summoner is not coming forward, right? You cannot assassinate it, but there's always going to be the hordes coming through. So in there, like that's the example of just like hunkering down and just playing the economic game. You try to like outlast them, right? Which is how the strategy that I went for. So it's really hard to overrun them because of that. Because they'll just be able to reposition and reestablish themselves with their 10 gate all the way to the back on the right, or all the way to the back on the left, or do things like that. That most other factions they cannot really do. Like if they don't have a gate, they lose the game many times.
Yeah, I would just say like you just don't panic. I don't know if you can panic in a turn-based game, but just keep your cool. And one thing I think we forgot to mention is just darkness bouncing your 10 gate. That's incredible value, especially if it's down to like 2 or 3 health, or 1 health, even better. But yeah, you can bounce it and then plant it in the same build phase, right? So I've done that a lot with rush factions. It's just like, okay, you're rushing me. Let me bounce my 10 gate and then put it back a couple of spaces and then readjust from there. And also you can plug your line too, like kind of hold the line with knights and just have that big body in between gates to prevent the advance. But overall, yeah, with Shadow Elves, you have so many options at the beginning of your turn with boosts and everything that you just got to keep it cool, I would say. There's always options, more so than any other faction, I would say.
Yeah, and in those situations, what you mentioned is like that's the best use case of the knight when they're really rushing you, using them as defensive units, like side to side with your gates, so that there's only one
Yeah.
flank open. Because they're gonna be having to, well, they're gonna stop there and have to be using their attacks. It's easy to slow them down so that you have time to keep cycling your deck and tearing down their units with the seekers, right, which hit really hard turn after turn. So they have the tools to handle those situations.
There was a specific tournament match, I think it was in the final round, where I was up against Wayfarers. I just had a solid line of like gate, knight, gate, knight, gate. And it was just like a line, and then slip couldn't get through, nothing could get through. And it was just, I wasn't even using cell, but I ended up winning the match just by holding that line.
Yeah, that's tough. Wayfarers sometimes can struggle when they can't get on your side of the board.
Yeah, so yeah, overall, I don't think the Rush factions are any better against Shadow Elves than other factions.
What about Forged? Have you guys played that matchup? Because Forged are kind of a unique instance in which if the inventor gets on your side of the board, then he can just pop things up all over. How do you guys, and they're also very effective at like taking out units normally because they can get that damage off the inventor's abilities. How do you guys feel about that matchup?
Yeah, that's a tough match, but I think it's an even match because well, actually it probably no, it's the Shadow Elves have the advantage because the
Yeah,
inventor
I would
has
say
to
so.
be really close, and any mistake, it's really easy to assassinate the inventor. Like they have Into the Darkness, they can hit you really hard with that, and so on. They're attacking. Then they can cover with the Seeker, so that you cannot even like just make them pay and just go all the way in. You're stopped there. They have ways to attack through your units, so they have all the tools to get the assassination. But let's say you play it really carefully and you use the things that cannot really be bounced easily or whatever, and you overrun them, which is a possibility, right? It's how it can get you. The fact that you're able to reposition your 10 gate allows you to start reestablishing that line and slowing them down. So It's not impossible for the Forge, but it definitely leans to the Shadow Elves.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's favored for Shadow Elves. And also, Seekers don't mind entry damage, right? So you can get boosts off that. And overall, lots of good Into Darkness targets. Although Vexer and I found out recently that you can't Into Darkness a barricade. So just a public service announcement for everyone listening. But yeah, those 2 cost units, great to bounce. And then, or great to use Into Darkness with. And then you can just tag the summoner there.
Sentry Cog becomes almost unusable because any like you can get the free boosts on any unit you want, right? It's not only the Seekers, really. You're going to be getting boosts as long as they are within distance of that damage, and anything that gives them free boosts, it's really dangerous against the Shadow Elves. That and also the fact that they have some tools to plug the holes. Like the inventor can be building diagonal, being protected behind like barricades and gates. So at least you have the Seeker that allows you to plug some of those, meaning killing whatever was there and then fainting into it so that the inventor is no longer being able to be planting stuff from a safe spot.
Overall, where would you rank the Shadow Elves when it comes to decks? Do you still think the Deeper Groaks are the best, but maybe Shadow Elves are number 2 in the game right now?
I wouldn't put them number 2.
Yeah, just the Groaks is just they're completely overpowered, right? It's more of a design issue than a conscious decision or a thing that they said like, oh, we want it to be this way, right? So the Shadow Elves, at least I wouldn't say that they have none of the cards. You look at them and say like, yeah, this is a design issue. Clearly, here there's a problem. So yeah, I would say after the Grogs in the same category as the other factions, which are like the Cloaks, which also I would say they're overpowered because of some design issues with a gun that you can place on the Machinist so that everyone just builds the monster, puts it in a corner, and then you have a summoner that attacks for 8, right? So that I think there's also the design problem there. That a card that shouldn't really be used that way, but they didn't put the a restriction. So now it just defines the way that faction gets played every single time. And it just makes it more powerful than almost anything. And so it's in that category with the Cloaks, with the Savannah Elves, right? I wouldn't say necessarily that it's more powerful than the Cloaks and the Savannah Elves. I would just say it's in that same category. Only the Groaks are just above all of those because of those problems that they have.
I put them in number 5. I'll give you a hot take. Definitely Frogs number 1, Cloaks number 2, Sand Goblins number 3, and then I'd probably put Savannah Elves number 4. But same category-ish, like Vexer said. Yeah, it's certainly debatable, but I would put all those factions in the same tier.
That's sort of where our tier list ended up that we put out a little bit ago. Although we did have Shadow Elves as number 2.
Oh yeah?
We had Groaks as number 1, and then the next 4 were Shadow Elves, Sand Goblins, Savannah Elves, and Cloaks.
Oh, okay. Wow. Interesting. But yeah, I'd probably put them 5th on that list, I'd say. Maybe ahead of Savannah Elves if they get nerfed.
I feel like they're more flexible than Savannah Elves.
Definitely.
I would probably place them above Savannah Elves. Savannah Elves can be super strong still, obviously, but I feel like the Cloaks and the Sand Gobs and the Shadow Elves might just have a bit more flexibility. But yeah, they're all very close, I think.
I actually put Crimson Order up there. I know Vexer and I have debated this in the past, but I do think that they're probably the top. Well, not the top tier because that's reserved for the Frogs, but the tier below.
Hey, fun fact: this is not pertaining to the Shadow Elves at all, but Crimson Order can out-econ the Frogs. Fun fact.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I've seen games where they went to turn 57 against Vanguard. So
Only faction,
I've seen it.
in my opinion, that can out-econ the Frogs.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, they can out econ anyone. Like that's their theme, right? Like the econ play, it's kind of their thing.
Well, yeah, they can out-econ basically anyone. I actually find that Shadow Elves, they can't out-econ because they don't give them enough magic to deal with. So Shadow Elves are like one of the few factions that I find can out-econ Crimson Order because you can just play keep away and not give them any magic.
I've also seen Crimson though out econ Shadow Elves a couple of times actually. where like it forced me to like do like a sweaty, glinting speed assassination
The
finish.
thing with the Shadow Elves is like it's hard for the Crimson Order to out econ them without also opening themselves up to just getting murdered by Salundar at some point in the game.
Yeah. They definitely can out econ Shadow Elves, but they have to get like aggressive and get up and get moving, and they can't. Like with Grox and some of the other factions, Grox are a tough one to out econ. Like that one can be really close, but like with some factions, I find Crimson Order can out econ just based on like existing, like just being there. They can just out econ people.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's why I put them second top tier, right below Frogs. Vexer's quiet because I know he disagrees with me.
I would just really call them number 2 because if I had to put them in order, just the fact of the consistency that they have, the fact that you're able to get stuff back, you get the same experience almost every single game with them. Compared with other factions, like for example the Savannah Elves, when you get like the pieces of the big hit combos too soon or too early, like you never see them or they're at the bottom, things like that, or the cloaks, like they're brutal when you get the pieces to make the mechanism, the monster thing, right? But if the moto boots, if you don't see them, then you won't be able to do that broken play and abuse blocks that way, right? So, but with the Shadow Elves, because you're able to just discard aggressively at first, even if you don't have the things that you want, it's rare that you don't see the pieces you need and then you just get them back. So just because of that consistency, I would just put them at number 2. It's something that no other faction.
They definitely have a huge high skill ceiling, I would say.
100%.
I mean, if new players are listening to this, don't expect to pick Shadow Elves and instantly be S tier faction. There's definitely a bit of a learning curve with them. So definitely a caveat for anyone who just started playing Summoner Wars and listening to this.
Yeah, and it can be a steep learning curve.
Oh yeah, for sure. But if you listen to this, you could be great.
You too could be playing them like one of the best decks in the game. No, but I think that flexibility is a good point, Vexer. I think it really points to how they can just do what they want every single time, almost like not caring about draw order or whatever happens, where some of the other decks, like some of them are very dependent on draw order. Like 2 of my Tournament of Champion games as Fungal Dwarves, I didn't draw a carrier until like last 7 or 8 cards.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a good
It's tough
point.
if you get no carriers with the Fungal Dwarves, but I was thinking one of the things that makes Shadow Elves good is that their best cards are their commons for the most part. Generally going to be less beholden to the draws because you'll probably get those commons at some point.
And then, yeah, Tomb End Game, where you can draw anything you need. And to me, that's the value of the Tomb, is just the flexibility in the end game. I never discard the second one. And I think that's the only time Vexer and I disagreed in this in this podcast about the first one to discard. But yeah, my advice before Vexer is like everything that is said before a but in a sentence. So just listen to him. He's probably right on that one.
Well, do you guys have any closing things you want to add on? Anything before we go?
Well, okay, fine. I'll ask Vexer a question. Why do you like the Shadow Mage profile pic so much? Why is that your profile?
Well, it's not that much that I like it. It was already there when I started playing.
It was the default one.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the default one. And I saw them once. Like I saw, like, oh, let's see what they have, and like really none of them have any appeal to me to say like, oh, I want to have this picture. I was like, yeah, that one is cool. Like that one is good.
I chose mine based off like the best shampooed hair, which turned out to be Vanessa. So that's the only reason why
didn't know
Vanessa
that,
is my profile pic.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Her hair looks amazing. Is it the Shadow Mage or the Shadow Knight? Your profile pic?
Shadow Mage. It's the mage. Yeah.
Aaron, I think you have Torridon. I saw recently.
Yep, that's who I got. Yep.
Wow, what resonates with him?
I just like that they picked the lizard. Like they did the same with the bear cavalry, and we asked Colby about it, and we're like, "Why'd you make the bear?" And he's like, "Well, what are you gonna make the rider the profile pic? You gotta be the bear."
And yours is still Brub, right?
Yeah, it's Brub. It was Smasher for a while, and then
That's great.
a rogue,
You gotta leave
a
it
rogue
Brub.
before that. But yeah, once Brub became an option, it became Brub.
There hasn't been a Brub outrage in the Discord in a while.
No.
I know, we should start one.
Actually, a firm supporter of Brub.
I mean, if you look at it now, I'm like number 8, and significantly behind in custom decks. So like they just have Cheez-Its things to complain about. But even that, I haven't seen too much complaining lately about any one deck. For a while it was Blood Summon, but even that,
What's the big cheese now?
Cheez-Its,
I haven't played in a while.
Swamp Orcs.
Cheez-Its has been playing Swamp Orcs and just killing stuff. And
No, I mean like what's the big cheese play right now?
Oh, I thought you meant what's the big cheese it's play, which is normally the big cheese play. I mean,
Oh.
those are those coincide.
No, I'm always curious on the broken plays and deck building.
What's King Zora been doing?
I played against him. He was doing like a Vlox thing with like Magcogs and Parapets and just dancing all over the place. Because you can
Wow.
copy Magcog with Vlox and he can still move and then just like pop behind stuff. I managed to beat him today though, so I don't know if that's what his best deck was. But he's up there.
Prophet had a similar deck with blocks, just magcogging all over the
I don't know
place.
what Turtle Freak's best deck is, but he's up there right now too. But one of his decks was like a Cave Goblin deck with Slip By and Grounded. He would just charge in and hit your summoner and then go back to his back row. Like he'd sly up, slip by, hit your summoner, then grounded to safety. Because you get grounded off of the Storm Goblins.
We're gonna get Vexer to join the next tournament.
For deck building?
Yeah?
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
he was my training partner against you, Aaron. I don't know if you know this. I had him replicate you.
He couldn't get enough of that surprise factor.
No, we weren't able to simulate that perfect hand and that bounce around.
I'm curious if they'll do a tournament though, because I don't know where it is.
We should ask them, or you guys should ask them last podcast.
I mean, I thought another one would be coming. I'm guessing it'd be soon, but we haven't heard anything.
Yeah, the timing on the last one was kind of odd because it was coinciding with the regular one,
It was
right?
right before, I think.
Yeah.
Or it was right
Yeah.
before. Okay, sorry.
And then, so it's been a long time since we've had one.
Interesting. Also, Vexer, do you know that you have 10% of my total games in this game were against you? Do you know that?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I looked it up today. I'm like,
That's why your win rate's so good.
well, it's not good for my confidence because it's really good. I don't know if you noticed.
How many are against Fuzzy?
Not as much. Fuzzy's doesn't play as much as Vexer does.
I feel like you guys have your own little training camp between the three of you at times.
Yeah, I definitely play some matches against Fuzzy, but she doesn't play as often as Vexer does. But I have a little bit of a tradition with Vexer where I always play the new factions with him. And I remember the Crimson Order. I think I'm the first player ever to discard Convert because I actually didn't read it properly. I thought it was only for the turn.
Oh.
I didn't think it lasted. So I just remember specifically in that game discarding Convert. I don't know if both of them, but yeah, those are like automatic losses when you practice the new factions with Vexer.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming on the podcast.
Well, thanks for having us. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you guys.
This has been another episode of Discard for Magic, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.